Thomas Moran pulls the tiller and the Oldsmobile swings onto the Flatbush approach, and ahead of him is New York. He is 34 years old, 2 days out of Cleveland, with road dust on every surface and a full tank of gasoline. He has driven 440 miles of wagon road, and the Curved Dash has not once refused to start. He takes that as evidence, not luck. The single cylinder beneath the body produces 4.5 horsepower, enough to outrun a walking horse. Some enough to terrify everything else. It runs at 500 revolutions per minute without complaint. Brooklyn ahead, brownstones, bare trees, a bakery cart on wet Belgian block. The wheels find the grooves between the stones and track them like rails. The closest thing to comfort this road offers. The gray horse notices the car at 50 yards and dances sideways into the gutter. Thomas brings the car to a rolling stop and waits while the horse decides what kind of animal this is, which takes most of a minute. 3 boys appear on the sidewalk and run parallel to the car. One shouts horseless, the word the papers use, and the others repeat it like a chant, all their breath coming in white bursts in the November air. The speedometer reads 15 miles per hour, which Thomas suspects is not accurate. There is no windshield, and the November air hits his face with the specific indifference of a city that has not been asked whether it wanted visitors. He joins the bridge queue, wagons, a delivery dray, 2 cyclists. None of them look at the car until the woman in the black coat turns, stops, and goes through several expressions in the space of 2 seconds. The bridge deck is planked wood, and the whole car becomes a controlled vibration. Manhattan ahead is brick and stone. And Thomas drives toward it at 8 miles per hour. The car comes off the bridge onto Park Row as the elevated railway thunders overhead. 3 horses, shy at once. Thomas keeps moving because stopping would mean becoming part of whatever happens next. The exhaust note bounces from the brick facades, arriving at strange angles. A pushcart man leans from behind his cart and stares with the expression of someone doing arithmetic that isn't coming out right. Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I'm Philadelphia. None of them had prepared him for this. The density of people on these sidewalks leans toward the street when the car passes, as though compelled by a law the city hasn't yet named. Before we follow Thomas any further, if this is the kind of story you've been looking for, subscribe to the channel. Every video here is built around a real car, a real road, and a life that changed somewhere on the asphalt. No filler. If that matters to you, the subscribe button is how you tell us. And leave a comment. Have you ever driven something mechanical enough that the road itself felt different underneath you? What car? And what road? Now, back to Thomas in the Oldsmobile. He turns north on Broadway and the scale becomes something else. The Oldsmobile is the only automobile on this block, possibly on the next, and the fact of it creates a corridor of attention wherever it moves. A policeman on Fulton Street raises one white-gloved hand. Thomas stops. The policeman walks a complete circle around the Oldsmobile without a word, then waves him forward. By Chambers Street, a loose crowd is accumulated behind the car, not chasing, only following, drawn by the noise and the complete unfamiliarity of the thing. He can hear them in the gaps between engine pulses. The city smells like horses, thousands of them, layered under coal smoke and cold river air. The car adds hot oil and exhaust vapor, a thin chemical smell that belongs to nothing else on this street. At 20 blocks north, Thomas lets the car reach 18 miles per hour. The tiller vibrates at a frequency he knows. The right rear wheel is tracking a rut. He shifts his weight left, and it stops. The curved wooden dashboard holds no gauges, nothing that measures the engine in real time. What he has is the sound, the heat through the floorboards, and 440 miles of accumulated knowledge about this machine. He comes through Union Square at midday. A labor meeting, a Salvation Army band, men reading a posted newspaper. Several stop reading when the Oldsmobile enters the square. A photographer at 17th Street disappears beneath his focusing cloth. The shutter snaps. A quiet door sound. When he emerges, he makes a motion that might mean anything. Thomas does not stop. The engine has been running 3 hours since the bridge, and the heat through the floorboards is noticeable through his boots. He has driven in this heat before. He keeps moving. The tiller is steel wrapped in leather, dark with oil from his gloves. He steers with a quarter pressure. the continuous negotiation between where he wants to go and where the road is willing to take him. At 23rd Street, he can see the Stanford White Tower of Madison Square Garden 3 blocks north, gray in the flat afternoon light. This is where he is going. The other 34 automobiles inside arrive by train. Several people outside the garden turn from the entrance to the street when they hear the engine. Thomas idles through a gap in the crowd and finds the vehicle entrance on the east side. He drives through the entrance and into the hall. 50-foot ceiling, hardwood floor, G34 other automobiles arranged like artifacts in a museum of the future. He kills the engine. The sound of the city disappears. A Columbia Electric beside him smells of nothing. A locomobile steamer hisses softly. Thomas has built his mechanical knowledge from trade papers and other men's engines. This is the whole argument laid out on a hardwood floor. Visitors move through the hall in formal dress. Tall hats, long coats, journalists with notebooks. They circle each automobile with the careful attention of people who have been told this is important and are trying to understand why. A man in a checked suit crouches beside the exposed engine, bar hat in both hands. He asks what it costs to run. 3 cents a mile, Thomas says. He asks what happens when it breaks. Thomas says he fixes it. The hall has shifted to gas lamp light by 5 o'clock. Thomas sits on the running board with a cup of coffee and watches visitors working out what they are looking at. He takes the small notebook from his coat, kept since 1896. Full of tolerances and transmission diagrams. He opens to the last page and writes one sentence. He closes the notebook. The crack in the right lamp glass. He notices it for the first time in the gas-lit hall. A sound on Broadway he had attributed to the engine. The lamp still works. The hall empties at 9. Before he leaves, Thomas puts his hand on the Oldsmobile's hood, the metal cold now, ticking with the small contractions of cooling steel. On the third day, a physician named Harlan Cross circles the Oldsmobile twice. He asks 3 questions about reliability. Thomas tells him the car is for sale at $230. Dr. Cross returns on the 5th day with a bank draft. Thomas explains the starting procedure, particularly the crank, which requires a specific forward snap and will break your wrist if you give it a full rotation. Thomas takes the draft and walks the car once. The cracked lamp, the mud still in the spokes from Brooklyn. The tiller grip dark with his oil. He touches none of it. He puts his gloves back on. He takes the spare gasoline tin from behind the seat and walks out onto Madison Avenue and into the November evening. Behind him, through the hall doors, the physician is asking someone about the carburetor. 3 weeks later, he is on a Lakeshore Limited heading back to Cleveland. The train does 50 miles per hour through New Jersey, and the landscape passes like something being put away. He keeps the notebook. He keeps the gray horse on the Flatbush approach, the boys calling out the word horseless. Shove the policeman's deliberate circle. These things do not change with distance. Back in Cleveland, he buys a larger lathe and takes on 2 apprentices. He does not buy another automobile for 3 years, and when he does, it makes him feel both older and more competent. The Oldsmobile passes through 3 owners between 1901 and 1907. Cross, a Newark produce dealer, a Trenton machine shop operator, $40. After that, no record. New York registered 47 automobiles in the fall of 1901. By 1910, horses are a minority on the island. The cobblestones hold the shape of a world organized around a different kind of power. Thomas Moran's notebook is in the Western Reserve Historical Society in Cleveland, cataloged under mechanical trade records. The last entry is the sentence from the first night on the show floor. He understood eventually that what he had driven into New York was an argument about speed, about independence, about trusting something mechanical with your life on wet cobblestone with November in your face. The Second National Automobile Show drew 40,000 visitors over 7 days and 53 exhibitors. The newspapers called it a glimpse of the coming century. Thomas Moran is not mentioned in any of them. He kept one object from the trip, not a photograph, not a part. The handwritten receipt from a Trenton gas operator, 1 gallon, 9 cents paid. He kept it in the notebook until 1941, May, when he died in Cleveland at age 74. The Brooklyn Bridge planks were replaced with steel grating in 1946. The Belgian block on Park Row was paved over in 1924. Of all the surfaces Thomas Moran crossed that November, none remain. New York City did not record what it thought of the automobiles in 1901. The newspapers noted the show. No one noted the particular stillness of a crowd before it decides what it is looking at. The held breath before something irreversible begins. At $650, the Curved Dash cost more than a year's wages for most of the men who pressed close to look. What they were looking at was not yet theirs. It was coming toward them. The Oldsmobile is gone. Thomas Moran is gone. The show floor was demolished in 1925. What remains is the distance, 440 miles covered in a machine the world had not yet decided to believe in. If these road stories are what you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. More cars, more roads, more lives lived behind a steering wheel that meant something. And if you ever drove a car old enough that people stopped to look, or knew someone who did, tell us in the comments. What car, what road, where it took. You. The cars remember everything, so do the people who drove them.